The following will contain spoilers for the series Five Nights at Freddy's. If you care about its story, I recommend you check out other videos before coming along here. Or just play the games yourselves, up to you. Five Nights at Freddy's is a long-standing series with a thriving community filled with a diverse age group, from children to boomers like me. Seriously, this franchise will be 11 years old and my back feels like that times 5. While initially FNAF was known for its scare factor via, at the time, different gameplay and the uncanny valley of childhood robots, it really started taking off due to the story, or rather, its vague display of it. I'm not gonna get into that badge of Bonnie Bites this video. If you're watching this, chances are you already know what FNAF is and what its lore beholds. If you don't know what this series is about, I suggest you watch a couple of theory videos before watching this video, because I'm going to bring up some elements that may or may not make sense to you. I even have some in the description relating to what I'm about to talk about. Either way, this series has a long, complicated story that has varying degrees of quality, depending on who you ask. But no matter how you look at it, there are moments in the story that you can't deny are absolutely poetic. For example, William Afton. He was the one that created the animatronics, including the spring-lock suits, and he used his creations to hide the bodies of victims he murdered. His victims, who are children, possess his robots and fight for control over the robots' programming to enact revenge on their killer. Once Afton destroys those robots, the spirits manifest in front of him, scaring him to jump into a spring-lock suit to hide, only for him to get crushed, killed, and trapped in the suit. Now he possesses this suit and fights for control just like his victims did. Overall, what a nightmare situation to be in. Not only is your life reduced to being painfully trapped in a robot, but if that robot is programmed to go for the noises of children, which has been stated in the previous games by the way.
While our engineers don't really have an explanation for this, the working theory is that the robots were never given a proper night mode. So when it gets quiet, they think they're in the wrong room. So then they go try to find where the people are, and in this case, that's your office. For ease of operation, the animatronics are set to turn and walk towards sound cues. This is an easy and hands-free approach to making sure the animatronics stay where the children are for maximum entertainment/crowd-pleasing value.
All control is ripped away from you and you don't have a choice, and that's reflected in FNAF 3's gameplay. Moments like this gives me the same feeling I get in Dark Souls. It's brutal, it's harsh, and it's kind of awesome, and in this case, it's deserved. This leads me to an example that we're going to be talking about in the recent FNAF game. Five Nights at Freddy's Security Breach. I know, I'm late to the party talking about a game that's already... Oh, Jesus Christ. I know I'm late to a party about a game that was already released over 3 years ago, but this FNAF phase has gotta go somewhere. In comparison to the other games in the series, Security Breach really stands out for various reasons. Like how it's the first game in the series to receive AAA development. And having a poor release. I know, listen, I know I'm picking on the game just like everyone else has. Yes, the game released at a buggy state, yes, there was poor communication, and yes, the game was a letdown to the fans, but deep down, despite the backlash and personal gripes, I secretly like this game. It did do a lot of things wrong, namely being not scary, and mess with the series' overall story, but one of the few things Security Breach did do right, and is probably one of the reasons why people still like this game, was the character writing. The personalities for these characters, especially the robots, are spot on, and the voice actors pulled their roles off well. Even with some of the characters having very few lines. Like, come on, you couldn't have Chica speak more than 3 lines the entire game? Like, seriously? Now, one can argue the reason why Security Breach failed at being scary was because of the fact the robots has this personality which the previous lacked thereof. Due to the fact that the previous robots didn't have any personality, really played more into the uncanny valley feel because you couldn't tell what their motives are based off of their personality. While I do understand that argument and can somewhat agree to it, there are other more important elements as to why Security Breach failed at being scary, and the personality is the least likely factor. If I really need to elaborate, please play the daycare center. Oh my god, that section is so creepy. Like, throughout the entire game, it's still one of the creepier parts of the game, at least in the base game. As someone who's been around this franchise for the betterment of 10 years, the robots having their own identity is a breath of fresh air. It's a change up from the lifeless robots being personified by dead kids, which, you know, with a lot of fan-made stories, is kind of nice because now you don't have to worry about making up your own story. You could just go based off the game or not have to dig through director's commentary. Like, seriously, the only reason why people think Bonnie's the most aggressive was because Scott said so. Plus, this brings a whole new story element that I find very interesting, as much as it is depressing. The animatronics have their own personalities, which would mean that they are programmed with advanced coding and technology to have that personality, which also means, and it's shown in the games, that they are so advanced, they are the closest creations to be human by humans. They have wants, desires, motivation, and are sentient enough to realize their very existence.
I have never been allowed in here before. This must be where I was born. Look at all the endos. They're all the same. Have I always been a Freddy? Am I Monty with a different shell? What if I am not the first Glamrock Freddy? Are there more of me at other pizzerias? Do we all feel the same? Am I special? If I am mass-produced, am I still art?
There is a moment in the game where Freddy has an existential crisis, and worst of it all, unlike humans who are able to be independent, the robots are dependent on Fazbear Entertainment. This brings up a whole new layer to some of the scenes in the game, specifically with Freddy and Bonnie. I don't know about you, but Steelwool has made it clear that Freddy and Bonnie has had a strong enough bond to be close. Now, whether or not they were best friends, maybe it was brotherly love, or maybe even romantic love, either way, they were close enough to have a strong bond. With that in mind, and with some of Freddy's lines, it really shows how advanced these animatronics are.
No, I did not. There is no rabbit at the Mega Pizzaplex. Not anymore. I do not come up here anymore. I miss him.
For more context, Bonnie used to be a part of the main crew, before and while Monty was around, when suddenly he was attacked. Not destroyed, attacked. I'm sure everyone knows he was attacked. Regardless on how you think it went down, he was destroyed and was never fixed. Let me make you understand why this is important. For the record, what I believe happened is based on Twisted Animatronics theory. I've left it in the description for you to check out, so if you want to be on the same page as me, you go ahead and give that video a watch. So Bonnie is attacked and destroyed. He was a long-standing member of the band in the Pizzaplex, and when he was destroyed, he was replaced. Not fixed, replaced. Imagine being in Freddy's position. All you've known about your creators is that when there is a problem, they can fix it. They are essentially miracle workers that have given your design, your body, your personality. They are the only ones you can rely on, and when your best mate is decommissioned, the only people that can fix him says that they can't. That's gotta hurt on another level. I'm not sure what Fazbear Entertainment told Freddy, but whatever it was, it may have been a lie too. On one of the posted notes in the game, Fazbear Entertainment did not anticipate Bonnie to be decommissioned, but took this in the moment decision to replace him with Monty. Why is unclear to me, but I do have a guess, which I will elaborate later in this video. But because of this sudden decision, there was no official announcement that Bonnie had been replaced. To guess, Monty was just the bass player now for some reason. Customers had questioned why Bonnie was no longer there. Now, can you imagine being Freddy, talking to the fans of the Pizzaplex and asking you where your best friend or partner is, depending on who you're talking to, and having to swallow your feelings down to explain the replacement, especially when most of the guests are children who are probably too innocent to understand the fragility of their mortality. Need I remind you that these are robots? These characters are walking pieces of metal programmed to entertain kids, but they are coded with such advancement that they have sentience, personality, and quirks to be more human, so much so that they can experience grief. Yeah, that's something a robot shouldn't be able to go through. I think I could speak for everyone when I say that grief is the worst yet most human thing anyone can go through. We all have experienced loss, we all have experienced it differently, but no matter what, it's universal. Grief is a telltale sign that you're human. Another human thing that usually is accompanying grief is crying. Crying is the result and release of extreme, overwhelming emotions that it's really the only thing your body can think to do. When you're so overwhelmed, it's just last resort. Grief is such an overwhelming sense of pain that it's only understandable to cry. And as a guy, I don't care what you say, whether you're a man, woman, non-binary, whatever you are, crying is normal. It's a very human thing to do. Now that being said, it's hard for me to cry. I have a hard time crying and I don't pride myself off that. When I feel these emotions, it feels like a pressure building up in my chest like water, and I'm just waiting for the dam to burst just for the waters to work, but it rarely ever happens. This makes me not only understand, but sympathize with Freddy's anguish for Bonnie's death, because he can be motivated, he can feel, he can grieve, but the one thing he can't do is cry. The thing that can relieve him of that sorrow. He just has to live with that sorrow until he himself deactivates. Unless, of course, he does what other people would do and vent via writing or art or poetry or whatever. But that's just speculation on my part. This is the type of trope that is depressing and I like it. It's why people love the Iron Giant so much. Like, it's so emotional, man. Now, that could be the end of that conversation, but thanks to the ruined DLC, it doesn't. Going back here, Bonnie has been decommissioned and then replaced. However, that doesn't mean he's dead. And if you play the games, you would understand that. Just because something is decommissioned doesn't mean it's dead. You literally see it in the gameplay in the later half of the base game. In the Ruined DLC, you can find Bonnie's body in his green room, surrounded by wet floor sign bots, and his eyes are glowing. You could just chalk this up to design choice if it wasn't for these set of actions you can do. Now again, this is based off of Twisted Animatronics theory, and I'm sure a bunch of theorists have already talked about this, so what I'm going to say is a summarized TLDR version of what I understand. If you want more elaboration on this matter, please go check them out. They did the work, they deserve the credit. The wet floor signs are a reoccurring side character within the game, but in the game files they are labeled as souls. I'm pretty sure Steelwool did this just because the fans really love digging into the files of the game. This has led to the assumption that the kids that have disappeared in the Pizzaplex, because it's not Fazbear property without a couple of missing kids, right, possess the wet floor sign bots. In the Ruined DLC, the protagonist Cassie obtains a tool called the Faz Wrench. She can use the Faz Wrench on all sorts of technological things, including the wet floor signs. When she uses the Faz Wrench on the bots, they deactivate. With this feature and the theory that the bots are possessed by souls, people have come to the conclusion that by deactivating them, you're letting the spirit in that thing move on and into the afterlife. If you manage to disable all the wet floor signs in the DLC and then return to Bonnie's body, his eyes will stop glowing. This leads me to believe that Bonnie could have powered down this whole time and not suffered the paralysis, but didn't because, well, he knows. He knows something. He found out what happened to the kids that disappeared, which followed up to his destruction. And this leads me back to what I think is the reason why Bonnie was never repaired. Vanny. She is part of the reason why these kids are going missing. Since Bonnie found out why, she would have to decommission him and then replace him to prevent Bonnie from telling anyone and ruin her plans to bring back William Afton. That's why Fazbear Entertainment made an in-the-moment decision to not fix Bonnie, because it wasn't their decision. They were persuaded by Vanessa. Now, this is partly speculated on my part with little research, again, just totally basing this off of other theorists here. I'm sure you can punch a couple holes in what I just said. Like, how did someone who is at the head of security, who's canonically not qualified for, with little to no engineering or PR skills, manage to convince an entire corporation based around entertainment not to fix one of their most beloved and popular characters? Seems illogical, but when you look at the story as a whole, there are some moments that has had their fair share of heaps and hops and logic that may have been or soon to be explained, so this question is probably par for the course. Anywho, the way I see it, Bonnie saw what happened to the missing kids, and when Vanny found out that he found out, she had him decommissioned and replaced to prevent him from spoiling her plans. This leads to Bonnie being in a Johnny got his gun-esque situation where he's paralyzed but alive and can't die. Or at least, not yet. Now that he knows of the spirits and that they're trapped within the Pizzaplex, he chooses to stay alive despite how painful it may be, with enough power to watch over them until they move on. And once they do, he can finally rest, knowing that the spirits are now safe. And that, to me, is cathartic. Hey guys, thank you so much for watching the video. I know it's a bit different, and also this FNAF stuff has been kind of out of nowhere. I've been mostly known for Deltarune content. It's just been the vibe I've been having to deal with for the past like 2 weeks now. And also, sorry for all the random SFM animations. I've been really trying to get into them. I might devote those types of animations into a second channel. Let me know in the comments below. And again, all of this being said, this information, what I've talked about, has definitely been because of the fact that other people have managed to find all the things that I've talked about. So please give them credit. Please go show love to them. I did not entirely make this on my own because God forbid I try to figure out the FNAF story on my own. Also, yeah, forgive me for how I sound and the lack of voice acting. I am rather ill. I've been ill for like the past like week now. So, but I hope you enjoyed the video. If you liked it, I would suggest leaving a like and subscribe for more. Hope to see you all sometime soon. Goodbye.